For some upbeat banter, plenty of laughs, and a whole lot of love for the game and our team. This is Buds and Blue Jays. And now your hosts, Riley McConnell and Jesse Burrell.
Good evening, everybody. It is Thursday, August 29th, and welcome to episode 207 of Buds and Blue Jays. It's your place for all things related to the Toronto Blue Jays. It's Jesse 1 and Jesse 2 back on the show again. I'm here joined by Jesse Turiso, and we got a lot to talk about on this show. The Blue Jays marched into Fenway Park, which what I believe is for the last time this season, and ultimately, what felt like a 5-game series will officially go in the books as a series split 2-2. But the Blue Jays really won with that condensed game in Game 1, feeling like a true minor league series, playing 5 games in one ballpark against one team. But we have a lot to talk about in this episode, including Will Wagner hitting his first home run, Bowden Francis continuing his streak of domination, and so much more, including an interesting conversation about what to do with Bassitt this offseason. So stay tuned for all that. But with that being said, Jesse, how are you today? How are you feeling, my man?
Good. It's been a busy night for me. I had a fantasy football draft earlier and while watching the Jays game and being a dad, but we got to get this done and talking about our Jays.
Hey, I went for all-you-can-eat sushi tonight, so we were both very, very busy in what we were doing, but we're still able to keep tabs on Bowden Francis and what he was doing in this game here. Jesse, I want to start, before we get into the player of the series and start the talking points of more finer Blue Jays performances in this series, I'm just going to spitball a question at you, okay?
Sounds good.
On the schedule coming up, the Blue Jays are going to Minnesota. Now, we haven't played well in Minnesota in the past, but they are the team currently in the third and final wildcard spot. If we happen to go into Minnesota, and if we happen to sweep them in the 3 games, we'll be 4.5 games out of the final wildcard spot with 23 games to go. Fangraph still has the Blue Jays at a 0.3% playoff odds, and I think we're still delusional if we think the Blue Jays are going to make the playoffs. But if we go into Minnesota and we sweep them, do you think there is a chance we could actually make a playoff run out of this?
As the infamous saying from Dumb and Dumber, so you're saying there's a chance.
They're saying there's a chance. Realistically, I don't think any of us are actively thinking this Blue Jays team can be a playoff team. There's still several teams to catch, but wouldn't it be the most Blue Jays thing ever if we go in, we sweep Minnesota, say we go on like an 8 or 9 game win streak, we even get into a wild card spot or just miss by a game or two? I know there's a non-zero chance that could happen.
Oh, like, it'd be great. Like, it'd be almost like we're playing MLB The Show and like rigging it so we make the playoffs. But it probably won't happen, but
you're right.
Boy, it'd be fun.
Right.
It'd be so fun to watch, though. Like, just being like having like be on the edge of the seat every game, every pitch matters. So giving us that playoff vibe and like almost what we were hoping this time of year would have been like if we were playing like this all season. Oh, like, yeah, there's definitely no chance of us contending, but if we sweep them, it'd be just such a, like you said, a Toronto thing to do with like many in all our sports franchises. But they did DFA Trevor Richards, so maybe that's the sign for us.
There you go. It probably won't happen, but something to root for in this upcoming series, this weekend series against the Minnesota Twins. All right, Jesse, let's get back into this series against the Boston Red Sox. 5 games, really 4, but technically 5, it felt like, in this series. A lot of talking points, a lot of Blue Jays got into actions. We saw all 5 of our starting pitchers pitch in this series. Who's your player of the series? Take it away.
Oh, I definitely would have to say Aston Barger. Like,
good choice.
He was not just doing it offensively, but even his defensive play, like playing a lot at third of this series, like, and he was just showing how like he can be an everyday player, and it could possibly be an integral part at third if, say, they, as I've heard, possibly moving Vladdy there next year and like going after the Alonso, but like if not, I'd be comfortable with Aston Barger. Like, his defense has definitely improved from earlier in the season. He definitely has the arm to like get those deep throws, and like right now his bat's even coming along, like especially being that lefty bat, like playing like Fenway or Yankee Stadium, man. He like with his swing, he'll be perfect. But yeah, this series he's definitely shown with couple of doubles. I believe I might be mistaken. I could be thinking of last series, but I believe he had a homer this series too, and it's just been he's definitely been enjoyable to watch as of late for me. Like just seeing him finally come around, like I hope he would. Why I thought he'd be the AL Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, no home run for Barger this series. Hit one in the last game against the Angels series, but the doubles were there. He had hits in all 3 games. Addison Barger, early in the year, we talked about how he wasn't playing enough and that we really need to see him in the lineup more. He's now started 11 of the past 12 games for the Toronto Blue Jays, and he was hitting as high as 5th, I believe. Did he hit cleanup in one of these games? I don't think so, but he got 5th.
Yeah, I think 5th was highest. Like I don't recall really seeing him in the cleanup because I know I wasn't really able to watch Tuesday's game because of work, but that's the life of us being not full-time podcasters yet.
Not yet, my guy. Not yet. Soon. Patience. But he's brought his batting average, which I know we don't talk about batting average much, but it's up over 200 now, which is after the dreadful start he had. He is no longer a negative WAR player on the season. He's crept that back to average. And the OPS in his last 11 games has gone up from 539 all the way up to 620. You go on a little bit of run like this, again, for Addison Barger, you can really see the rise come up and go. And, you know, it's been a while since he's had the prospect pedigree, but Addison Barger still has a lot of tools. That arm, that swing is phenomenal. And with a guy who swings as hard as Addison Barger does, I've actually really liked how he's been able to still find a way to get the barrel on baseballs when he doesn't necessarily get his A swing off. Like I think it was in game 3, he had a double down the opposite field line. One of the Blue Jays, actually, I think one of the few hits they got off Brian Bayo. It was Addison Barger who was just able to get the bat out there and go. And I like what I've seen from the kid. And it seems like he's put an impression on Blue Jays management too, with hitting him higher in the order and actually playing him all the time now, which is quite good to see.
No, exactly, and like even today he had a double, which why I thought it was a home run because it was right by the pesky pole where it turned into a ground rule double and ended up being the first run of the game for the Jays on the Brian Sermon double. Like, so like he definitely has done his impact and. Even if you look in his minor league days, when he first went to each level, he struggled mightily. Then eventually it clicked, and it became like he was playing a game like with game dreaming, where he was dominating. Like when he first went up to like AA, struggled, then he would dominate it. Then he went to AAA last year, struggled, or the year before struggled, then dominated it once he was healthy after dealing with that elbow injury last season.
Jesse, just simply true or false? Addison Barger, you've seen enough from Addison Barger to pencil him for an everyday role, or at least on the opening day roster in 2025.
I say true unless he's used in a package for which we'll discuss it during the offseason. If this is something that could happen, I can definitely see him.
All right, the Jays might move somebody there, but we will get into that as we get into the offseason here. My player of the series, Jesse, and it's a guy we've been so excited to talk about over the course of the last month or so, is that's Bowden Francis, who honestly, after the no-hitter he carried into the 9th against the Angels, throwing 117 pitches, I thought he would struggle today. The Boston Red Sox, I think, were 7th against WOBA in right-handed pitching and even better against right-handed splitters, which Bowden Francis threw 40 times in that start against the Angels. So I actually thought the Red Sox would come out here and actually pitch really well or hit really well against Bowden Francis. It didn't matter. Bowden Francis had it yet again. His final line here, 7 innings pitched, struck out 5, only 1 hit allowed, only threw 70 pitches. He did talk about pregame how he was feeling a little bit of fatigue, which understandable when you throw 117 high-stress pitches in the start before against the Angels. Very good to see from Bowden Francis. The run he's been on, Jesse, like you can pick your stat or pick your line, has been phenomenal. The last, I think, time a Blue Jays has gone 5 innings plus without allowing a hit or something since R.A. Dickey. I think the last time they've had a 2-game stretch with 2 hits or less in 2 starts is like Dave Stieb and Ross Stripling did it once. And he's doing things that like no Blue Jay in franchise history has done since Roy Halladay. It's very impressive, the stretch that Bowden Francis has been on here, and it's absolutely believable. I'd say without a doubt, he's got to be your AL pitcher of the month, correct?
Oh, 100%. Like, and that, like, with how he's pitching, like last month since the Angel series, like it almost shows like he, like, might become our true, like the true ace out of nowhere. Like, and why? Like, yet another bold prediction for me is coming to light is why I thought he'd be a top 10 Cy Young at the beginning of the season, because from what I saw in spring, I knew a pitcher like this was in him and could present himself during the season, and now is actually coming to fruition. This is something I'm definitely enjoying watching, and is everyone where I'm like, I do know ball and know how to can scout and see what a pitcher's doing. And if he's not pitcher of the month, then it's a Toronto bias that or another conspiracy that MLB doesn't like Toronto being successful.
Hey, they did give him Male Pitcher of the Week after a very good 2-start week there, but yeah, he's been phenomenal. His ERA is now under 4, which is very good with how bad it was that he started. So Bowden Francis, I'd say without a doubt, has worked his way into a starting 5. I think you can pencil in his name with a lock going into the 2025 season, which is huge for the Toronto Blue Jays. My question is, would you rather have for next season, who do you think is going to have a better season next year going into 2025? Bowden Francis or Kevin Gausman?
I'm going with the age and all that. Definitely, I feel like it'll be Bowden Francis because he's, as the saying is, the right side of 30. Even though for both of us, 30 isn't that bad. And also he's less taxed and mileage on his arm compared to pitchers like Gausman and Bassitt. And I could literally see him if he continues this rest of the year and into spring that, and we can write it down now, be our opening day start for next season.
I just don't think they will do that with next. That's quite a bold prediction, my guy, and save the spicy takes for a little later on. But he's only thrown about 72 innings this year, maybe up to 80 after tonight's start. He'll probably won't get to 100 by the time the season's over. So the Blue Jays are probably not going to let him go all out next season. So therefore, it'll probably be tough for him to be in the Cy Young conversation, which is ridiculous that we're even talking about that. But he looks like that guy, honestly, right now, and it's been absolutely phenomenal. Nothing but good things to say about Bowden Francis. Honestly, I'm not really sure how he's doing it. He's throwing 92, 93, 94. The splitter looks nice. I know the command has been impeccable with the splitter for Bowden Francis, so maybe there's something to that, but kind of wild too. A guy just picks up a splitter and just all of a sudden can dart it the way he's been darting it, like he has been there. Absolutely phenomenal. I think his next start comes against the Atlanta Braves, another good hitting team here. I could be wrong on that. Let me double check, but does he keep the run going up in his next start?
Oh, definitely. And I believe that this series too is in Atlanta too. And if I'm correct, their ballparks are very pitcher friendly, so it could be a work to his advantage. And also right now, Atlanta's big boppers are all pretty much on the shelf with LB's, Riley, and all that. So
that's true. Yeah,
it could help. It could help him.
All right, Bowden Francis forever. Well, the guy to see he got on this big run. It'll be very exciting to break him down in the offseason to see what we can learn. The baby Blue Jays really went on a good run here for the stretch of the second half, or the stretch of this series, including Will Wagner. And we had touched on him last series about how, hey, maybe Will Wagner was cooling down a little bit, but he finally broke out in a big way. He had in game 2, he had his first big league home run. He had 2 more doubles. He did it in a park his dad, Billy, pitched in for a little bit too. Always good to see Will Wagner get that first home run, get that goose egg off the board. And just like that, after his super hot streak to start, and then he went a little cold, his numbers seem pretty good. They're right in line. John Schneider gave him nothing but praise. I was kind of hoping we'd see him in the lineup today. The Blue Jays are on a stretch where they face a lot of right-handed pitchers. They're going to see even more of this coming up week in Minnesota. So I think we might get an extended run at Will Wagner here. What have you thought about his season so far and his performance in this series?
It's definitely been a brief. Obviously, it's only been a couple of weeks, but I've definitely been impressed by Wagner. He's been playing some solid defense, and it was great to see him get that first career home run even though, like himself and myself, we both thought Brady caught that ball, so it was a little confusion there. But it's nice to see someone like a prospect like him get his first career home run, especially on a field that his dad pitched in. I thought it was funny when they were saying in the broadcast, Will Wagners' favorite teams were whatever team his dad pitched on, and like he was saying for the longest time he was a Red Sox fan when his dad was there. Then like before when his dad's career ended, was just a Braves fan until he was drafted.
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, if my dad played in the big league baseball, you bet I would be hopping teams to whatever team he was on, because that'd be the one that's given my family money, right? And that would be the one that I get to see my dad play for. So my dad, not much of an athlete, but he could crush it pretty good in his softball. Not as good as Will Wagner, I suppose. Having mic issues here. It keeps getting unplugged. Damn technology, but we've got her from here. All right. Moving on. I wanted to touch on a player that really impressed me in this series, and we're moving back to the starting pitching side, and that is what Chris Bassitt did here. He had a stretch of, I believe, 7 starts in a row where his ERA was over 5. We were starting to get very concerned about Chris Bassitt. He came in here, and if you notice, Jesse, he actually moved to the right side of the rubber. He made an adjustment, and he said post-game he really was able to use that sweeper and that splitter more. And if you look at that sweeper, I think he got 8 swings on it and 7 whiffs. I think it was the most he's had in an appearance this season. And 7 2/3 innings pitched for the Hound Dog. He looked like Chris Bassitt looks when he was really good. So I'm genuinely encouraged by him and excited to see what he does next series against Minnesota here. How do you think he's going to do? Or what did you like about Chris Bassitt's start here?
It was nice to see that like he was able to like finally realize he needed to adjust and find go on the other side of the rubber. It definitely looked like the Chris Bassitt we saw most of last year, where like he was able to land all his pitches and not have a blow ups as much as he's been as late, even though he's known for that. He definitely was backing up, like trying to like make amends with his words. When it comes to all the stuff he's saying and trying to dominate. And unfortunately, Brian Bayo pitched had was very good, like hitting his spots and all, which made it trouble for the Jays.
Yeah, that was the
but
best.
It definitely was from. Oh yeah, and last time we faced him, Bayo, the Jays lit him up, and that was like game 2 of back in June when I was there. So
right.
it definitely was a. Promising, to see Bassitt actually look like what we thought he was going to be all year.
Yeah, some notable things that happened in this series, as you mentioned, that Brian Bayo start. He absolutely shut down the Toronto Blue Jays. The Blue Jays had 2 pretty notable streaks going on going into that game. One, Dalton Varsho, who we've yet to talk about, had a 23-game on-base streak that was snapped in that game. As also the Blue Jays had a streak of, I believe it was 16 straight games hitting a home run, which was also snapped in that series. And that'll happen sometimes when you just run into a very good starting pitcher, as the Blue Jays did. On the offensive side of the ball, the Blue Jays had more home runs in this series. George Springer hit another home run. We already talked about Will Wagner. And Dalton Varsho actually hit what was his first home run in, I feel like, a month. So good to see those guys hitting home runs. And between that and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. having 5 more hits in the series, was there anyone there that caught your attention that you wanted to talk about?
Definitely in tonight's game, like Brian Serven played
had
the double. Like I give him props, especially his game calling too. The last few starts he's had with Bowden Francis, he's been catching him. Like he caught him in the near no hitter game.
Mm-hmm.
The game in Chicago, where really this stretch of dominance started coming. He's been catching for really helping Bowden Francis, and I feel like it's because they were working together in Buffalo when they were both down there. So it's like that comfort, they don't it's like how they used to in the few years back, where each pitcher had their own catcher in a way, where obviously Dickey had Tolley, but Marco Estrada when on the just pitching to Dion and Navarro, and so, but why we had those 3 catchers when we had Martin, Navarro, and Tolley. There's certain pitchers like them, but I definitely, or even now with Manoah and Kirk, is how that works and all that. But Serven has definitely done a solid job. He gunned out Duran, who's one of the for like a really good base stealer. And also like having the double today too to drive in Barger. Like he's not like going to like make you like turn heads and all that, but like when he does the little things right, like you will notice it. And, like especially today where we only scored 2 runs, but he was integral to from stopping the run to score and also integral to driving in a run today. And I feel like he was almost the MVP next to Bowden Francis for today's game.
Yeah, that's all you want from a backup catcher, right? Is to come in to call a good game, play good defense, and then if anything you can provide with your bat is a bonus. But Brian Serven honestly has done that. And when Danny Jansen was traded, we thought, oh boy, we're going to see a lot of Brian Serven. And yeah, he hasn't been that great with the bat, but a good hit today helped the Blue Jays win. And on top of what he's been doing with the pitching staff, I'm impressed with Brian Serven. He's hasn't been a sore spot on this roster, that's for sure. On those players, I wanted to mention Vladimir Guerrero Jr. 5 more hits in this series, including a couple monster shots. He is now 4th all time as a visiting player in Fenway Park in terms of OPS, right behind Babe Ruth. So Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Right. Anytime you're mentioned in the same conversation as Babe Ruth for doing something in baseball, you are doing pretty good. Goes on to talk about how just dominant Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has been lately. So I wanted to give that a little love. And I guess I want to mention before we get into struggling hitters, I want to talk a little bit about Dalton Varsho too. He hit the home run. His streak was ended here, but I've noticed that over his little hot streak, his 23-game on-base streak, he hasn't been getting underneath the ball as much. He has been kind of hitting the ball on the ground more, which normally is something we don't love to see. But no one in baseball has a higher launch angle than Dalton Varsho, and that's because he pops up the ball so much. He hits a lot of these lazy fly balls. I think it's more likely with his speed and his tools, if he can actually hit the ball on the ground just a little bit more, he could turn into that 20 home run guy, maybe that can hit you 240, which is all we've really wanted from Dalton Varsho in the past. And hey, look, he's well on his way for another 20 home run season. Going back to his last season in Arizona, that'd be 3 straight 20 home run seasons for Dalton Varsho. And that's all you need to get a 4.5 WAR player with how good he runs the bases and how good he plays defensively. So shout out to Dalton Varsho as well.
No, exactly. I feel like he'd be better suited instead of being trying like that power hitter and all that. Just be the slap hitter with your speed. Like you can, like we've seen, like he can turn balls that are most like players doubles into triples, and like if he can come into one, like put around the pesky's full, like or like in the short portion of the Yankees Stadium, even the Rogers Center, like our ballparks are all the ballparks in the American League East where we play a lot of games are more suited for the left-handed hitters, and like you can just pull one and barely get it, and it'll still get out of the parks.
It's true, and I'd love to see Dalton Varsho be able to tap into that a little more, but I think overall we're doing okay with him. 3 struggling hitters that the Blue Jays had in this series that I just want to mention quickly. Joey Loperfido did not look that good this series. He actually went 1 for 15 coming off a series where he had actually hit pretty well, so that was tough to see. Alejandro Kirk, who we've been giving a lot of praise to over the past month, went 1 for 12 in this series. And Leo Jimenez, who got the start over Will Wagner in the finale, 1 for 9, did draw a walk in this series. Any level of concern for these 3 players, Kirk, Leo Jimenez, or Joey Loperfido?
I would say probably the only concern I would be is just like Luis Loperfido, but like as we were saying, like he could be one of those hitters where like he's hot for a while, like hot for a streak, and cold for a streak, like kind of like the roller coaster. But again, I'll say I'm concerned, but I'm not really concerned because again, he's barely like had it like played in games in the majors, and he's still young. And like again, it's like you don't know what type of hitter you are until you hit 1,000 ABs. So
right,
there's gonna be good, there's gonna be bad, there's gonna be ugly. But I'm hoping like after this season they find like what was really like making him not be as consistent and like just make the adjustments and where he could be like almost George Springer-esque type of hair because I can really see that, but from the left side.
Okay. Okay. So this is a good time, I think, before we move on to Yariel Rodriguez and some other pitchers that the Blue Jays had. I want an upside check here. And out of these 4 hitters, who do you think has the most upside? Joey Loperfido, Addison Barger, Spencer Horwitz, I guess 5 hitters, Will Wagner and Davis Schneider. Which of those 5 hitters has the most upside, do you believe?
Well, I feel like with Horowitz, we've already got a good sample size and can understand what type of hitter he's going to be. If he can tap into the more power, as we know he has the power, but more regular power, then there could be a big upside there. But the 2 I feel like have the highest upside, ironically, both are lefties. This is going to be Barger and Loperfido. I feel like they could be very solid power left-handed bats. I almost want to say when it comes to Barger, I don't know why I feel like he's going to be very similar to once he figures the power and he could be almost like a Bryce Harper from the being a lefty. And
Bryce Harper was the wonder kid. He was on Sports Illustrated when he was 12. That's.
But I feel like with Barger, the fast switch and how he is very similar to how Bryce Harper is. When he was coming up with the fast switch, lefty swing, and when he make contact, he goes. I feel like Barger could surprise someone and possibly once he figures it out, maybe even be a contender for either an AL MVP for the Jays or if he gets into the NL, he could possibly be an MVP candidate in the future.
Hey, we're talking upside, and that's a hell of an upside comp for Addison Barger. And one of my comps with him, I always thought Carlos Gonzalez of Colorado, the sweet lefty swing. Now, Addison Barger won't have Coors on his side, but that's the type of player I think if all things go well, except he can play a little third base, is the type of guy I thought Addison Barger could be. I'm with you, though, I think, on Joey Loperfido. It's the exit velocity numbers. It's the way he plays defense, the way he runs the base as well, will give him a high floor. We just need to see those strikeouts come down. If the strikeouts never come down, then Joey Loperfido is never going to meet that upside that we think he could be. But the tools are there. And I've loved a ball player with great tools for years, and Joey Loperfido has them. So it'll be tough to give up on him there. All right. To the rest of the starting pitchers that pitched in this series, and we've got 2 we've got to talk about. Jose Barrios, 7 2/3 innings pitched, 8 hits, 2 earned runs, no walks, 6 strikeouts. And Yariel Rodriguez, who I don't have his official line here, but I know he gave up a bunch more home runs, and the Blue Jays, he's got an ERA over 7 over his last 6 starts, and the Blue Jays have lost all 6 of his last starts. So, Jesse, you pick one, I'll take the other. Jose Barrios or Yariel Rodriguez, who would you like to talk about?
I definitely will talk about Barrios. Again, he gave up all the hits, but again, he is still as dominant as he was, and just workhorse. He gets he saved our bullpen. He's not going less than that, and just he did what he could, and I'm correct. That was the game 2 of the series, or game 1 or 2, however you want to think about it. I couldn't watch much because I was working, but I definitely we still end up winning the game, which is what matters most. He gave up 8 hits, we still got to win. So he did his job to keep us not giving up a lead and costing us. Where unlike Rodriguez, he cost us. We can't come back. But I'll let you talk more about him.
Right. Quick note on Jose Barrios. He's actually having a very interesting season. And originally he was supposed to come out and pitch the remainder of that condensed game. But if you remember, Jose Barrios, I don't think has missed a start due to injury or demotion since 2017 when his rookie year in Minnesota. So I think it was nice the Blue Jays let him start game 2 of the quote unquote doubleheader. So that way he could keep that start streak intact. I know it doesn't really matter, but it's probably important to Jose Barrios. So I did like that the Blue Jays were able to do that for him. And his season, if you look at just his overall season line, it's kind of wild. He has a 3.72 ERA, but an expected ERA over 5. He's got a career high ground ball rate, but also a career high stand rate and a career high home runs per 9. So it's very interesting. A lot of outliers through Jose Barrios' career of what's been happening in his season so far. So it'll be very interesting to see what comes of this going into next season from Jose Barrios. I did want to touch on Yariel here. 6 straight starts now where he's been bad. And the home runs were a really big problem in this one, which is something we didn't see a ton of early this year. But we know with Yariel Rodriguez is the stuff is good. And when he's locating the stuff well, the hit suppression is on, but he just really hasn't been locating that stuff that well lately. And it came back to bite him here in this series too. And I'm starting to maybe feel a little nervous about Yariel Rodriguez. I still love the stuff and I still love the hit suppression there, but I don't think you can guarantee him in the starting rotation next year. And you might have to put him in the bullpen as your long man going into next season because he's not getting built up enough as you would like to think. And even if you can get him built up a little bit more as the rest of the season has gone on, are we still sure that he can be this dominant pitcher that we've seen flashes of his time? I like to think you can, but it's you kind of want to see it again sooner rather than later with Yariel Rodriguez. So it'll be interesting to see what the Blue Jays do with him rest of season and down the stretch.
No, definitely. Like, especially seeing like they're 0-6 and like with him pitching, and like even this year, like I didn't even realize. So I looked recently, he only has 1 win, and if you're a starter and you're going what, only have 1 win, like that kind of makes it a little more eerie and like hesitant to like have you in that rotation. Like I feel like if the Jays weren't so depleted in pitching, I feel like he would have been in the bullpen or down in Buffalo to figure this all out.
Yeah, the way his contract works, though, is he cannot take a demotion to the minor leagues next year. So he will 100% be on this big league team next season. And as of right now, unless there's an injury in spring to something or something unexpected happens, like we trade someone I'm not sure about, then it sounds like he's going to be in the bullpen, which should, in theory, help the bullpen. Speaking of the bullpen, how about that for a transition? We got to talk a little bit about that here. In Game 3 today, relieving Bowden Francis, we saw Genesis Cabrera come in, gave up a hit, got the hold. Chad Green came up, got another save. And over the course of the series, we've seen some interesting things for the Toronto Blue Jays here. Eric Swanson pitched a clean inning. Tommy Nance, who was the only Blue Jays reliever to give up runs in the Angels series, pitched 2 shutout innings here, only gave up 1 hit, did throw a wild pitch, but struck out 3, which was very nice. Brandon Little got into 2 games. He faced 10 batters, did give up a home run, but other than that, that was really his only blemish. And I believe that's it, all I have for things, because technically in Game 1, which is the bullpen day, technically falls back on that start in June, so I don't have their stats here, but Ryan Yarborough pitched really well in that one as well, and he's been good in his bulk role. So out of the guys in the pen, Jesse, do you have a thought, a takeaway, something you've noticed from these guys?
It was definitely nice, like seeing like the bullpen, or as we've been calling the bullpen, actually continue the pitching well like they did in the Anaheim series, and it was nice to see Tommy Nance not give up any runs, and even seeing Littell get his 2-inning save in Game 2 or Game 1 of this series. So it's definitely nice, and even Chad Green, like I thought he was going to be traded, but I'm definitely glad he hasn't been, where at least we know he can close it out for us.
Yeah, we haven't done a check-in with Chad Green in quite a while. Are the Blue Jays going to pick up his $10.5 million option going into next year?
I would say yes, just because of how like valuable he's been for this bullpen, especially with the uncertainty with Romano, or even like how hot and cold Genesis Cabrera is, and like just even how Swanson is. Like they need to bring him back just for that insurance policy for next season.
Okay.
And if we're selling, just sell him off, and hopefully we can get something back.
Good call. Normally, I would have said no. Paying $10.5 million for a reliever, even if he's as good as Chad Greenben, is kind of dumb. But the Jays got under the luxury tax this year, so there won't be that severe of a penalty for doing it next year. So you might as well sign Chad Green to the extension. All right, Jesse, I've got a few more things I want to mention up here before we get into the minor league side. There's been a lot of Bo Bichette discourse circulating around the Blue Jays media and the Blue Jays Twitter. We sent out a little Instagram reel kind of captivating what the thought process is for Bo Bichette, but I really want to get your take on it here. And anyone listening, please leave a comment on what you think the Blue Jays should do with Bo Bichette here. But we know the facts, right? Free agent at the end of next year. We saw him take some training, some pregame workouts here in Fenway. He seems like he's going to start a rehab assignment soon and that he should be back with the Blue Jays at some point in September. Two questions, I guess. What do you want to see from Bo Bichette rest of season when he does come back? And what do you ultimately think we do with Bo Bichette, whether it's this offseason or going into next offseason?
If he does come back and that cap is 100% healthy, I would love to see him show that it was the cap that was causing him these awful numbers and lack of power. I really just want to see him more show he's not checked out and almost play to show that he actually cares and back up the work and make him show that he does care about this team, even though I can say myself and probably many more Jays fans who are pretty much done with him or just checked out on him because of comments and just everything this season's been with him, and just feels like I just want him to show, like I say with Bassitt, just show that he cares and actually.
Right. So what is that going to look like from Bo Bichette? Do you need to see him come out to the media, say something regards of his post-game talks about how much he really cares this team or really wants to win? Or do you need to see it with how he is on the field, celebrating with his teammates? What is it that, if you can give me an example of what you really need to see?
I feel like it's a bit of both. I feel like he does need to talk to the press and clarify and give us clarify everything why he said what he said and his way his demeanor, just almost let us go inside his brain. Okay. Even though even his career he's never been like that, but just give us those answers everyone wants to know or understand. And then when it comes to being on the field, yeah, be a part of the team, celebrate, enjoy the youth movement, go on a Bo Timber kind of run, but just show your true the player we know you are. Just go back to how you were last year or even I said that Bo Timber run. Just help just be valuable and not unvaluable on the field.
Okay, it shouldn't be surprising if that happens, but with how Bo Bichette had played so far this year, it's not something we're guaranteed to see. And I think we're getting to the point where this might just be a lost season for Bo Bichette. So we have a lot to see from him going into next year to know that he can still be an impact piece for our team going forward. Very interesting. All right, Jesse, let's take our turn down to the farm because these are the baby Blue Jays after all. And we have a lot of things coming down there. First, I want to point out Jake Bloss. After we talked last episode, one of the key guys we got at the trade deadline for the Yusei Kikuchi trade didn't allow an earned run until this point in the season, until this one. And I don't have his exact line, but he got blown up, if I remember correctly. I think 6 or 7 earned runs it was. The strikeouts were still there, but it was not pretty for Jake Bloss. A lot of reports were that the Blue Jays still wanted to see Jake Bloss get at least a start or 2 in the big leagues before the season was over. Do you think that's still the case, or has this start that Jake Bloss just had changed your tune on that a little bit?
It definitely doesn't change. Actually, I feel like he'll probably be the one pitcher we call up for this September call because if I'm correct, it's one pitcher, one player. They're allowed to call up nowadays.
Yeah, because there's a limit on how many pitchers you can carry on a roster. So I think you might be able to do 2 position players, but you couldn't do 2 pitchers, I believe. I could be wrong on that, but that sounds right.
It's definitely way less than what it used to be when we were growing up, where you can just bring your whole farm system up. But I definitely feel like he'll come up when on Sunday, especially with the September call-ups, and we'll probably take that spot where we've been using the Yarbrough and Burr lately, and just slide in there, or or even make it a 6-man rotation with the bullpen day. So, but yeah, his
Jays have already talked about going 6-man, so it wouldn't be surprising if it's there.
Yeah, and like we were saying too, like it could actually be more beneficial for our older pitchers too, and like Osmond and Bassitt and Barrios to get that extra day. So with especially the stretch of no off days.
Yeah, I would like to see Jake Bloss make another start down in Buffalo before he does come up to Toronto ultimately. And in that start, I want to make sure he pitches well again before you bring him up. I don't think you want to make his debut in Toronto when he doesn't have much momentum towards him. So I want to see him get some momentum going first, or he just shut him down and get him ready to go for next season. You gave me a pitcher prediction, Jesse. Who is your hitter that you think the Blue Jays are going to call up for the September call-up this year?
Well, like as much as like I have two that I would love to see come up, but I'm just looking at how many outfielders are, and of course they're both outfielders. That it'd be Jonathan Clase, the piece we got in the Yimi Garcia deal, or possibly Alan Ronan. Like as last episode, Dave Floman was saying, like he's been lining it up in AAA since he's gone up.
Another home run tonight, by the way, for Alan Roden down in Buffalo.
Yeah, exactly. Like he's been on it, but like one player I feel like they might call up just because of positional stuff too. It could possibly be Damiano Palmaggiani. Could possibly come up too. Yet another third baseman, first base. Give him a little reps at third, just see what he can do because he's had a solid year too in Buffalo.
So in terms of who's earned a promotion, you could say that, yes, Alan Roden has. The only issue is he's not currently on the 40-man roster and doesn't need to be added to the 40-man roster until next year to be protected from the Rule 5 draft. So because of that, I don't think the Blue Jays are going to start the service time on Alan Roden, which sucks because he absolutely does deserve to be in here. Jonathan Clase is a good choice. He just hasn't hit well since he started down in Buffalo. So maybe it won't be him. You could just see a guy like Luis De Los Santos, as unsexy as it is. He got his major league debut. The Blue Jays felt bad when they sent him down. Maybe they just bring him up here. You know, we already have Stuart Baroa, who's an outfielder who's not playing much on our bench. Nathan Lucas, who I think is just coming back from his thumb injury now, should be on the mend here. Like, he was deserving of a major league roster spot before his injury. I could see the Blue Jays maybe throwing him a bone, getting him back up here. And if it's not Jake Bloss on the pitcher side, I sure hope it's not Paulo Espino. And if you're going to go with a reliever, pick your reliever because they've all spent time with the Blue Jays this season, whether it's Easton Lucas, Luis Frias, Yeri Rodriguez, Jose Cuas, Brandon Eisert, Mason Fluharty is an interesting name who looked good in spring. Like, pick one of them because it would probably be a guy like that who would come up and join our bullpen, and not as exciting in years past as September call-ups used to be.
No, exactly. Like another player I was just thinking about your name lifting him off, like even like Hagen Danner or even Phil Clark, like who's been in our organization for so long. Like it'd be cool to see him come up and possibly be that show. Like if he has almost like what Arcibia was many moons ago. Like maybe not the same power, but like that like prospect that everyone knows of.
I mean, he's 27 and in AAA, but, you know, still, like, the Blue Jays calling up a third catcher might not be the dumbest idea. Kirk has caught a lot. You know, if Brian Servin's going to catch still, a third catcher just to give him a little bit of breather, as unsexy as it may be, might be the play the Toronto Blue Jays do going into September. All right, Jesse, Minnesota, big series where we lost in the playoffs last year. It's our first trip back to Target Field since Jose Barrios was pulled in the playoff games there, and we brought in Yusei Kikuchi, and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. got picked off second base, and it was a bad time for everyone involved. First time back there. I mentioned at the top of the show, hey, if the Blue Jays sweep, we're only 4.5 games out. Realistically, that might not be so possible. What are you hoping to see from the Blue Jays in this series, or do you have a pick to click, a prediction, if you will, on who our player of the series is going to be going into next episode?
What I would love to see is keep this like momentum that Jays have been on. Just like it'd be great to finally win a series in Minnesota because I feel like since they've gone to Target Field, we don't win a series ever, even in the playoffs at Target, and we always struggle. And ironically, we're always there in September too, which is kind of weird. Like the last few years, especially when like Minnesota's, it's like our weather here, and like where it's cold and rainy usually in September.
You'd rather go to Minnesota in August, though, than you would in April. I'll tell you that for sure. So I don't think the Blue Jays are upset that they're going there at this time of year. It'll be the last 3 series to end of the month. Probable pitchers are Kevin Gausman against Pablo Lopez, Jose Barrios against Zebby Matthews, the rookie, and Yariel Rodriguez gets Bailey Ober in a matchup of 2 guys who really struggled last year. A lot of right-handed pitching, a lot of very tall, big right-handed pitchers from Minnesota. So which makes me think Addison Barger, Will Wagner, Joey Loperfido, if you are still healthy. I know you ran into a wall in the game today, so we'll see how you're feeling from them. But I would like to think one of them have a big series here against the Minnesota Twins. And let's go Addison Barger. Let's keep him hot again. He'll be back-to-back players of the series.
Yeah, I definitely would say, I would say Barger, but one I think could possibly even have a big series, especially with the dimensions of that ballpark, be Dalton Varsho.
Good call. Yeah.
Another lefty, and just with those dimensions and his speed, could be almost like what he did in Arizona with all those triples, or even went over those high walls in the high wall in target field, either in right or left. I feel like he could have a good game, not just defensively but offensively.
All right, well, that'll do it for our episode here today. You heard it here first. If Dalton Varsho has a monster series, you can thank Jesse. And if Bowden Francis is winning a Cy Young Award next year, you also heard that here. And if Addison Barger turns into Bryce Harper, you've heard it here as well. A lot of good takes on Buds and Blue Jays here today. Jesse, anything else you want to add? Anything you want to shout out before we get out of here?
Nope, just as you check out all our socials, we're definitely going to be pumping out the content. And if you subscribe, comment, we'll get back to you guys. And thanks everyone for listening, and all have a great night.
Couldn't have said it better myself. For Jesse Turiso, I am Jesse Brittle. Thank you all for joining us. Big series in Minnesota. We will be back to recap every single thing along the way. Until then, let's go Blue Jays.
Thanks, guys.